All right, we're good to go.
Thank you. Sarah?
Thank you, Mike. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Peets. I serve on the Board of Directors of the Nebraska Arts Council, and on behalf of the Nebraska Arts Council, I would like to welcome you to this panel meeting. We have convened to review applications in the arts project category. Decisions made at today's meeting by this panel will determine funding for all the applications up for review. They will then be reviewed by the Nebraska Arts Council Board, which is meeting on December 13th of 2022. So I would like for each of our panelists to introduce themselves and to one another and to those listening in today. And I will call upon you one by one, and we will start with Katrina Adams.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Katrina Adams, and I am the Executive Director of the POC Collaborative Community Resource Center. We focus on nonprofit development and economic and community development work. I am really excited to be here and to just discuss what we've learned through this review process.
Thank you, Katrina. And our next panelist is Matthew Boring.
Good morning, Matthew Boring. I'm the Deputy Director at the Lead Center for Performing Arts in Lincoln. I also serve on the board for Nebraskans for the Arts and play trumpet professionally outside of my work at the Lead Center. Excited to discuss all these great applications with the fellow panelists today.
Thank you, Matthew. And our third panelist is Drew Duncan.
Hello, my name is Drew, professional singer, have worked in arts administration, currently in nonprofit social justice work, and doing fundraising, and also excited to discuss our applications today.
Thank you, Drew. And I really appreciate Matthew and Katrina and Drew, your time and expertise and the insight that you bring in helping us review all of these applications today. And in addition to our panelists, the Nebraska Arts Council staff members here today include Suzanne Weiss, our Executive Director, and Mike Markey, our Deputy Director, and Rachel Morgan, our Program Specialist, who has equipped us well with all the information we need for the meeting today. We also have Sam Henney, who is our Communications Manager, and he's here to assist with any technical issues we might have. We have Jennifer Dreibelbus, our Grants Administrator. She is managing the online scoring. And Stephanie Plummer, our Program Coordinator, is taking minutes today. And so, Suzanne, would you like to take a moment for a few remarks, please?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Sarah. Thank you. Hello, everyone who is dialed in or keyed in to watch the proceedings today. This is indeed your tax dollars at work. The Nebraska Arts Council is a state agency, and therefore a portion of your tax dollars go to support the arts, which is a very nice thing. The thing that's different about us from foundations or other types of support is that we have this open meeting so that you can listen to all of the comments being made, not only about your application, but the other applications that have come in at this deadline. So that's something that you can't always count on when you talk to a foundation. They don't necessarily tell you why they did not fund you if you're not funded, for example. But in this case, the reason that I am going through this is that it's very important for you to thank your elected officials as you go through your work. Invite them to your events. They may not come, but persistence is the key. Just getting your name in front of them can often mean a lot when it comes to voting on, say, increases for arts funding. So always do that. Advocate whenever you can with elected officials by thanking them for supporting the Nebraska Arts Council, because by in turn, that means money for you. So I wish you good luck today, and we'll now proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. And now I will turn it over to Mike Markey, who will take us through the grant program and the panel process.
Thank you, Sarah. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the live stream. A couple of pieces of housekeeping real quickly. We would love to be able to show who all was attending with us today. So if you would take a moment to put your name and your organization in the comments section there on YouTube, that would be very helpful to us. Then also, just to let you know that after about an hour of this, we'll take a break, and we'll let you know at that time when we'll be coming back and restarting the live stream again. Then when we're all done discussing the applications, we'll stop the live stream so that they can do the rest of their business. Okay. With that said, now the details of the panel process. Panelists have received and have read all the applications in advance. Each application has been assigned a primary and a secondary reviewer. Applications will be discussed and then individually scored by each panelist according to the published Arts Council criteria for this category, which is published on the website. The panelist scores will then be averaged, and the applications will be ranked according to that averaged score, highest to lowest. Panelists will then determine which of the applications merit funding based on those scores. A mathematical formula will later be applied to determine grant award amounts for the approved applications. Award calculations will be based on the average score for each application and the available funds in this category. Higher ranking applications will then receive a greater percentage of their request. Finally, NAC staff members, in this case, Rachel, are here to assist the panel process, but remain neutral so as not to influence the panel. As such, they do not engage in panel discussions, except to add clarification about grants or procedures when appropriate. Okay. Final note, the grants will be done in alphabetical order, and that order is available on the NAC website. With that, Sarah, thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions or comments before we dive into the grant applications? All right, I think we're ready. So our very first application we will review is the Axtell Oratorio Society. And Rachel will give us our first synopsis.
Great, thank you, Sarah. This grant will help compensate professional orchestra members and vocalists on April 2nd of 2023, and the performance is being held at the Merriman Arts Center in Kearney, Nebraska. They estimate an audience of 500 to 600 people will attend the concert, which is performed by 50 to 60 volunteers in the chorus. They have 4 soloists and a 20-member orchestra.
Thank you. And Matthew, you are our primary reviewer on this particular grant, so we will let you begin.
Yes. This particular project is something that has, clearly made a big difference for a long period of time in multiple communities in central Nebraska. I thought some of the biggest strengths of the application were in the artistic quality. Anytime that you're able to bring the professional and volunteer community members together to create an artistic product that's high quality, I think that's an exciting thing to do for the community. And they've clearly been able to do that. When I was reviewing some of the samples and things, I had difficulty accessing, the video, which Rachel was able to address that. And so I was able to find it, but the link that was provided by the applicant didn't work, as well as their secondary sample, which was from the Kearney Hub, appeared to be a broken HTML link. So I wasn't able to access that sample as well. But the YouTube video that I found of the performance was very strong. You could clearly see all the community members who were involved. There was strong attendance at the event. So I felt very, very confident in the qualification of the artists and the overall artistic merit. When it came to the planning and evaluation, the timeline provided some of the major milestones, but in my opinion, it lacked detail, especially related to the promotion and publicity. A comment that I made kind of as I was reading this application is that it feels like, this program, which has gone on, for a long period of time, this exact application could have been submitted 20 years ago and it would have been identical. And so I was looking for a responsiveness of, with that period of time, like what has been learned, what are the things that have changed related to marketing, publicity, engaging underserved audiences, also just engaging new participants within the choir, especially for the community component of that. And then the other piece is that there's really nothing related to the promotion and publicity. And so, the communities, like the target communities and their populations are identified, which is really helpful for me. I'm familiar with some of the communities in that area, but it was nice to have all of those sort of broken down. But the strategies and sort of the items of, how that promotion will happen, just lacked a lot of detail. When it came to outreach and engagement, the letters were really brief and limited. In my opinion, they didn't provide a lot of context, around the impact that it's making in the community. And one final comment that really stuck to me was that one of the strategies outlined related to underserved outreach was that many people may donate tickets to people who might not attend due to financial reasons. And I just wondered if there's a better way that either the organization can set aside some tickets for that, or if that is a strategy, if like an intentional fundraising campaign might be made for that, whereby a bank of tickets would be available. And as I mentioned at the beginning, it looks like this has been a successful program for a long time, and every reason that will continue to be successful in the future.
Thank you, Matthew. And our secondary reviewer is Drew. So Drew, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, a lot of the notes I had were already mentioned from Matthew. I think the biggest positive is very clear that it's very focused on community involvement for community enjoyment. And that's always a big plus, especially when you're in more rural areas, being able to bring classical music and involvement, let alone the presentation of those things. For me in the planning and evaluation, there were a few specific things that I thought, especially within the budget. The miscellaneous budget is over $1,000. And I feel like when miscellaneous budget line items approach, for me, I'm more conservative. So if it's over 500, I like to have more of a breakdown of what that miscellaneous line item is actually going towards. If you're putting that much aside, you might have a general idea already where that's going. So it's just better practice to break that down and be more specific. Another area that could be a little bit more specific is your patron donation area. They're all clumped together in that 7,000. In the materials, it looked like you did have different levels of donors. That's another opportunity to break down to say how many of each level you're having to get a better scope of your audience and what their financial contribution and involvement is with the project. And then I'll just add on to what Matthew said about the donated ticket. I really liked the idea of donated tickets for reduced financial barriers. But then again, for me, it's about the strategy and the lack of how is that being promoted or how is that known within the community that that's an option. I feel like that side of it was missing for me.
Thank you, Drew. Any additional comments, Katrina? Covered it well. So I will pause here for a moment and you can all take a look at your scores and see if you want to do any modifications, updates. And once you are ready to move on, give me a thumbs up. Matthew, Drew, and Katrina, thank you. And we'll we'll move on then to our second application. And that application is from the Capital Jazz Society. And Katrina, you get to lead us off as primary reviewer.
I'll do a little synopsis though
I'm
while
sorry.
everyone's,
Thank
that's
you,
okay.
Rachel.
It's all right. While everyone's switching over, it gives you a little bit of time to get set for the next one. The Capital Jazz Society is a nonprofit organization that presents a series of high quality jazz events on Monday evenings throughout the year at the Storm Cellar in Lincoln. They are preparing for their January through June events of 2023.
Thank you, Rachel. And now, Katrina, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. This proposal was well written and helped me really understand just events that happen in different communities. I appreciate that the organization was designed by and for musicians who are passionate about their craft and sharing it with the community and engaging students in an organic way. As related to the qualifications of the artist and the artistic merits, I thought that was well outlined. The one area of concern that I have is just the lead administrator is wearing a lot of hats. And so just wanting to somewhat address succession and how other people are being engaged in the process. With planning and evaluation, the timeline was really helpful for me to understand the process of producing the events, but I was left to wonder if the majority of the work is falling on one person or if it's being delegated across a group or committee, as specific roles weren't addressed in the timeline or work plan. With the evaluation of the project goals, I would like to know a little bit more about data collection. Like, are you asking all performers and participants a standard set of questions or with scales and rankings, or is it more qualitative debriefing? For example, like, how do you feel after this experience? There's nothing wrong with either. It's just curious how you're collecting and implementing those learnings. And then for the outreach and engagement section, the audience development, underserved outreach, et cetera, there wasn't a lot of information about attending demographics. So I'm curious about who shows up to these events, and also would be interested to know what efforts are being made to reach people who are not currently engaged in the jazz music scene in Lincoln and surrounding communities. And if there are opportunities to connect with other programs or schools outside of the Monday night events to increase engagement or drive diversity.
Anything else, Katrina?
That is all I have.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good comments. And our secondary reviewer is Matthew. So I will let you go ahead, Matthew.
Yes, I agreed with all of Katrina's comments. The detail of the timeline I felt like was very helpful in this. Just it appears there's so many events happening as part of this series that, you know, having that level of detail really helped me to understand how they were being, you know, promoted. My only real comment that I had in addition was that I do think that a strength of this application and project in general is the diversified financial support between, you know, some financial support from the venue, some, you know, foundation support, individual donations, and so it like seeing the variety of income, I felt like was you know, something that definitely helped to me to understand both the budget process, their planning process, and how the series would be funded long term.
Okay, great. Thank you, Matthew. And Drew, do you have any additional comments you would like to note?
Yeah, the only thing I'll note was that stood out to me that there was some conflicting information between the narrative of the application and some of the documentation on the scheduling. There was mentioning of 3-month period scheduling, and then other parts there was talking about 4-month period scheduling. So there's just a little inconsistency in there to be noted for next time.
Good point to bring out. Thank you. So right now, you can all take a moment to check your scores and make any updates, and then give me a thumbs up when you're ready to move on. Drew, Katrina, Matthew, thank you. Thank you. I took my eyes off the screen there for a bit. And we'll move on with a synopsis by Rachel of the Grand Island Music Series grant application.
The Grand Island Music Series is a new concert series that will be taking place at the Stir Museum in College Park in Grand Island. There will be 5 indoor concerts at College Park from January through May of 2023, and then 1 outdoor concert at the Stir Museum in June.
Thank you. And our primary reviewer is Matthew.
One of the first comments I had about this application was that the diversity of the artists that were being presented was really welcome to see. You know, from small groups to larger ensembles, you know, all different types of musical backgrounds and things. That was something I really enjoyed. I also think using a variety of venues was something nice to see in terms of engaging different areas of the community and different formats, you know, from indoor, you know, the free outdoor concert at the Stir Museum, as well as the indoor concerts. I appreciated the approach of kind of having a kickoff that's meant to try and engage a larger segment of audience, you know, but before the subscription series began. You know, when I was reviewing the budget, you know, I did note that the you know, the management fee basically equals the entire artistic programming budget. And so for me, that was a fairly significant concern. You know, just that if the entire management fee is the same as the artists, I realize it's a multi-concert series, and so there's coordination required for each one of those events, which is something I identified as a strength. So I do recognize that. I was just a little concerned with the level of management fee related to that. I did appreciate that, you know, they're looking at recruiting a sponsor for each of the events, you know, having a concert corporate sponsor, and seeking outside support. Let me see if I had any other notes here. I felt like in the outreach and engagement, I could sense that there was a desire to do outreach and engagement. I just didn't really get the outline of that. You know, so, you know, they talked about, you know, having a free educational concert, you know, featuring the string beans, but it didn't really capture, I think, maybe what the full spirit of the applicant was in terms of engaging, you know, youth in the community and a broader community support. And I think those were all of the comments I had. Thank you.
Okay. Excuse me. Thank you, Matthew. And the secondary reviewer is Katrina. I'll let you go ahead, Katrina.
Thank you. For me, the artistic quality sections, they were brief. I think some of the real estate in the application could have been used to delve a little bit deeper into why the series was created and what it will mean to the community. I did appreciate that the applicant called out their efforts to satisfy varying wants and needs of a diverse community, which can be really, really challenging. So I appreciated that being called out. With the planning and evaluation sections, again, it could use a little bit more development. I'm going to probably say this a lot and forgive me, but SMART goals are really helpful just to not only be clear within the organization itself, but to express clearly to reviewers and other interested parties what the goals are of the project and what you're going to measure and how you're going to do that. With the outreach and engagement, again, I appreciated the intent of the series to bring a broad selection of performance artists who appeal to the diverse community of Grand Island. With that in mind, I was left with questions about who will select the artists, if there are any language barriers in the community, and how that may be addressed in the marketing and evaluation materials.
Thank you. Drew, any other additional comments from you?
Yeah, I have a few things. On the positive side, like, it's just always fun to see new things being put together. So that was kind of exciting. For me, my comments again are within the budget and opportunities for more breakdown. I think the advertising section could have been broken down of more of what the strategy is, print versus digital and things like that. And as I mentioned before, I like seeing more of a breakdown of sponsorship levels within the budget. If you have sponsorship levels created, that gives a good scope of your engagement. Also, the foundation support seemed kind of generic, and I wasn't sure if that was anticipated or if that was already received within your budget. So that's another opportunity to be a little bit more detailed. And then this was already kind of mentioned. The biggest thing for me is that there wasn't any clear plan or execution or what the strategy is of reaching the diverse audience. It seemed more blatantly stated that the concerts are diverse and therefore the audience will be equally as diverse. And I think there should be a little more explanation of the intent and strategy of reaching the diverse audience, whether that's through your marketing beyond just what you're presenting in the performance.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, we'll take a moment to look at your scores and make any modifications or updates that you wish to do. And give me the thumbs up when you're ready to move on. Matthew, Drew, Katrina, thank you. And our next application is from the Jocelyn Castle Trust. And we will start with Matthew, our primary reviewer. I'm sorry, we will start with Rachel on the synopsis. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. This application is to help pay the artists who perform in the Winter Chamber Music Series, which is comprised of 3 events featuring 3 contrasting musical artists. The Dakota Wind Quintet will perform in January, Bel Canto will perform in February, and Forte Pianist will be featured in 2 performances and a workshop in March. Performances will be held in the music room of Jocelyn Castle. They anticipate, or a total of 200 guests can be accommodated for the 4 performances, and then another 50 for the workshop.
Thank you. And now we will move to Matthew.
I was really excited to read this grant. It sounds like a concert series I would like to attend as a chamber musician myself. Haven't had a chance to see an event at the music room of the Jocelyn Castle, but I felt like the applicant did a good job of sort of bringing me into what the concert experience would be like. The artist bios and samples were helpful. To see the 3 different artists that they had selected. With opportunities to watch videos and listen to some of the music. When it came to the planning and evaluation, one thing that stood out to me with the budget was it seemed like a pretty high level overall budget versus a detailed breakdown. I noted in my comments that with the groups not being Omaha based, the only travel talks about artist housing for 2 nights at $300. And that doesn't seem realistic to me. You have 3 different groups. Some of them have multiple members. Some of them are traveling from out of state. And so it made me start to look at other areas of the budget and just wonder if they were kind of placeholder areas or how detailed, the planning actually was. When I looked down at the marketing and publicity, it's a $2,200 total budget, $2,000 of which is in radio. And again, I do understand classical music station, classical music audience, but they talk about wanting to engage new audiences beyond their standard audience, and social media as a tool for that. But there's almost no funding that's being allocated for that. And so for me, I felt like there was a disconnect between, they said we want to maintain our regular audience. We want to share this and engage new people, but there's no funding allocated for that. And so, unless it really is in engagement of staff or the artists in the community, it felt a little thin. I also noted, that the applicant mentioned that the grant support would allow ticket prices to be set at a level that would not be prohibitive for lower income guests or students. and for, many people to attend a concert, any type of a charge can be prohibitive. And so a breakdown between perhaps, here's our standard admission, we're going to offer a set of discounted tickets, or, we've established, 3 community partners, and we're going to provide 10 tickets to each of them. Just something that provided, a more detailed breakdown of that would have been helpful. Again, I understand the limitations of it's a small space, and so, half the tickets, likely can't be free to meet their revenue goals, but just something that outlined, what will the process be of engaging new audiences? What will the process be of providing these free and subsidized tickets? Would have been helpful for me.
Great comments, Matthew. Thank you. And our secondary reviewer for the Joslyn Castle Trust is Drew. So I'll turn it over to you, Drew.
Yeah, I also thought it was a great variety of series. Particularly, I liked the work of the pianoforte concert, and then all the involvement with students around that. That's something that isn't necessarily like always provided. So I feel like that got some good points. I feel like for measurable goals, there's an opportunity to go beyond just attendant and ticket sales metrics as far as what your goals could be. Within the budget, I had a few things that I feel like could have been maybe explained a little more throughout. The one thing that was confusing possibly to me was the charge of facility use within the budget, while it is still their own venue. So I wasn't sure if they were charging themselves or how that was necessarily working within the budget. It was confusing to me. And then just to note, the admin and utility is, just under that 25% limit, which, sparks a little bit of a flag, and it doesn't go over what that limit is, but it is so close to it. It's worth just like noting what the priorities and where things are being put around in that budget. One thing that I super appreciated about the application was not just broad demographics of the city, but there was a lot more detailed demographics, specifically in and around where the venue and the project is happening. And I really appreciated that detail and zoom in of demographics. And then again, just to address concerns that are already raised in there of ADA compliance.
Okay, very good, Drew. Thank you. Katrina, do you have any additional comments at this point?
No, I think Matthew and Drew covered everything pretty thoroughly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah, can I have one more comment?
Absolutely.
So to Drew's point of it was really helpful to have the neighborhood demographic info. For me, the next step that would have really pushed it into the sort of the top level of scoring was, what's the engagement plan? The research has been done on, this is the neighborhood we're in, but to really be in that top level of success and the engagement that it sounds like the applicant wants to have, I need to see the plan for that. And who are the partners? Are they on your board? Are they helping to plan the series? That's what I was looking for to push into that top category.
That part. Thank you, Matthew, for calling it out, because that was really, that part.
Thank you all. So we'll take a moment to check our scores, and then you can let me know when you're ready to move on to the next one. Thanks, Katrina and Drew and Matthew. Thank you. So our next application is from the Lincoln Community Foundation. No, it is from the Kimball Concert Association. Almost skipped that. Sorry about that. And Rachel, will you please give us the synopsis?
Absolutely. This application is to help the Kimball Concert Association start their 47th year. The grant funds are to pay for the artists who will be performing. They're starting off their season with the Travis Anderson Trio, followed by Forever Simon and Garfunkel. They are lively and engaging groups who will engage their growing audience and student body. These concerts for their patrons and ticket holders will be held in the spring of 2023 in the auditorium in Kimball.
Thank you. And our primary reviewer is Drew. So I'll let you take it over, Drew.
Yeah, I thought it was a good variety of presentation. I liked their awareness of their community and the area growth, and how entertainment is varying to attract the range of the community members that they have. I also liked the not one person will be excluded attitude, being very inclusive and working to have transportation and other barriers lowered to participate. And there seemed to be a good cross of connecting students and educators with what they're doing and what they're bringing to the community. For planning and evaluation, let's see here. I'm reading my own stuff as like as presenting. I didn't have an idea or grasp of what evaluation has been done before, or what evaluation is a continuation or what they're building upon in the past, since it is something that has been done before. I thought the timeline was a good broad outline. There could have been some more detail, especially like within their marketing, and how they're going to connect with their teachers and students. And especially like the temp workers in the community and the new community members, seeing in the timeline where that and how that's being executed. There was some inconsistency on numbers within the narrative of the application versus the budget itself, especially when it came into the goals of season tickets versus individual tickets. There was different numbers mentioned in the narrative and in the budget. There is a lot of talk of community orientation within the series. And it seemed like there wasn't much corporate sponsorship within the budget. And I feel like that's an area that could really align with a lot of what the narrative and what was being presented within the application itself. There could be more breakdown, I think, in the budget as well when it comes to marketing and some of the like miscellaneous items, light and sound. Some of those kinds of things seem to be pretty broad within the budget. For outreach and engagement, there's a nice overview of the area and the audience, but could have been a little bit more data driven in the demographic section. I appreciate the like trying to add more arts to the rural community. That always resonates really well. There was a lot, one of the things that really piqued my interest within the application was of the like boom in the community and the temp workers that are around and wanting to engage with them. I think there's opportunity then to, with giving that information, of going into more detail of how you plan on the strategies involved with that. And I enjoyed the letters of support as well, in the connection with very community oriented project.
Great, thank you. And secondary reviewer, Matthew, we'll let you go ahead.
Thank you. The areas I have additional comments in, we're mostly in planning and evaluation. I felt like it was a very high level timeline. It's missing some key milestones in my opinion. The big one that I wrote down was when do the tickets go on sale? That's a pretty key milestone. I liked the project goals. I liked having that each goal had an area and how it would be evaluated. The writing style was fairly casual through that, but I appreciated that there was a directness in each of the areas that how will we get more area students and teachers to attend? Well, we're going to personally contact the teachers. We're going to encourage their students to attend. We're going to budget travel money for us to go see the teachers. I could really think through like, okay, this is how our organization is mobilizing to achieve our goals. I felt like that was very helpful. There was mention of a corporate sponsor in the budget at only $250. I might challenge the organization to be a little bolder in either getting multiple sponsors or increasing the top dollar. It seems like this is making a big impact, and I wonder if there's some revenue left on the table. I guess I disagreed with Drew a little bit on the letters. The letter from the county commissioners, it was 3 sentences, and so it didn't really give me anything about what they're excited about, what this next iteration of the program could be, and somewhat similar with the City of Kimball letter. Again, it seemed very copy paste from previous years, and so something about like, is it this artist that they're excited about? Is it the increased promotion plan? Is it new residents? I'm just looking for like, that iterative growth of when you have long time series, like, how do you keep pushing it so that it's always relevant and it always feels like it's a fresh new program that's happening in the community. When I read the application, it definitely made me want to attend the series as a final note.
Thank you, Matthew. Anything else, Katrina, that you want to add?
I really appreciated the addition of the helping folks with transportation, because transportation can be a barrier. And so thinking about the accessibility as well as transportation to events is really important, not just providing free tickets, but then how do folks get there if they're, have limited mobility or are not able to, don't have their own independent transportation. So I thought that was really helpful, but I agree with everything else that has been shared.
Thank you. So we'll take a moment to update scores as needed. And the Lincoln Community Foundation will be our next application. That will be application number 6. So Rachel, what do you think about after the next app, we take our break? Okay, perfect. So y'all can give me a thumbs up when we're ready to move on. Thank you, Matthew. Thanks, Katrina. And thank you, Drew. And kudos to all 3 of you. Your comments are great and helpful. And it's kind of a mixture of an art and a science in writing a grant application. And you're just also making some great suggestions for these organizations and moving forward. So good work on that. So our next, as I mentioned, application is the Lincoln Community Foundation. And Rachel, will you please give us the synopsis?
Absolutely. The Lincoln Community Foundation Gardens Performance Series is held on Wednesdays from May through September of 2023. This specific application is for events that happen May through June. These free public concerts are held from noon to 1 in the outdoor pavilion at the Foundation Garden. They're requesting an arts project grant to help support these free weekly concerts in downtown Lincoln.
Thank you, Rachel. And our primary reviewer is Katrina. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So this project was exciting to read. I think that it's definitely obviously a beloved community event, both for artists and participants. There was a lot of information about how the performers would be selected, but I didn't get, like, I didn't know if it would be kind of based on the same folks that were indicated from the previous flyer that was attached. I know the selection process hasn't started yet, but just curious of like what the focus would be, or who potential artists might be, or if there were some new folks that were in the pot to be selected. I think that artistic quality could also include some additional details about why, like in previous performances, why certain performers were selected, or how they drew in a certain number of, like, 50 new or 50 audience members for this performance, or, just giving a little bit more context to those areas under project description, artistic merit, and then qualifications of artists, especially since there's not a current slate of artists participating. With the planning and evaluation, most of the logistics are outsourced to Arts Incorporated. And so the applicant organization didn't seem to have very much skin in the game in terms of financial commitment to the project. I'm not sure if the budget is reflecting the cost related to the whole project, or if it was just for the May to June. And then just a hint or recommendation that it would be helpful to use the budget narrative sections to clarify points in the future. If something could use a little bit more detail, to use those budget narrative sections to just continue to tell that story in a way that's helpful and tells the story of the numbers and the narrative. Outreach and engagement. I appreciated the letters of support. They were helpful in understanding how the series is impactful for all who attend and participate. I would like to see more information about how promotional efforts are reaching diverse segments of the community, to ensure that they are aware and engaged in this incredible opportunity to hear a wide range of live musical performances. More detail in this area would also shed more light on efforts to develop your audience demographics, which the applicant may want to consider listing as one of their project goals. I'm also curious if attendees are ever asked who they would like to see perform, since this is a really engaging opportunity for folks in the community that are regular attendees. Can't talk today. That is all that I have.
Great comments, Katrina. And our secondary reviewer is Drew. I'll let you take it over, Drew.
Yeah, I really like the community focused elements of this project, both for the audience and also the performer. And always nice when there's free and open to the public events like this that are accessible in heavy traffic flow areas already. One question that I had, and maybe this is a staff question, in looking at the budget, as was mentioned, the administrative work is being contracted out. I was curious if that contracting out of administrative work, does that bypass the 20% admin rule, as that is 50% of the budget, and it's not clear within that 50% what is allocated towards marketing or other project expenses right now? It just seems like it's admin expenses, but it's contracted out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I think it's a comment in the minutes of how, kind of like in the music series, how the contract out is as high as the artist fees. I think it's something to put in the minutes. But yeah, since they've contracted it out, you can't really tell how it's kind of divided out.
Yeah, so I would just make the note then of like what Katrina said, of using that area in the budget to kind of expand on the intentions behind that, just because it's not as clear.
Good observation. And Matthew, do you have additional comments?
Yes. In the planning and evaluation, I was excited to see the detail about how staff members interact with audience members and discuss the performances, noting reactions. There's a evaluation criteria that's logged by staff for each event, with the audience numbers and the frequency, and there are a big breakdown of items. And I would have loved to see any of that or all of it. Just in terms of how has the series grown, or has it declined? Have they, coming out of COVID and not having in-person events, like have they seen a huge uptick in the series, or has it been a struggle to build it back? Because I think about like a downtown urban core environment, and I see, lots of lunch places are closing, still haven't had a full return of downtown employees. So I don't have a sense of, is this a series that's growing, or is it a series that's needing to reinvent itself? And there's nothing in the narrative that helps to give me a sense of that either way. I made the same note as Drew about contractual fees as that administration, and I was really surprised that there's no marketing budget. It sounds kind of like reading the narrative that's kind of rolled into the contractual administration. But I think it would be a lot cleaner to break out what is the marketing and advertising piece of that.
Very good. Anything else, panelists?
So
Okay.
one final comment. I was a little surprised that it's the Lincoln Community Foundation Garden Series, and I didn't see any support from the Lincoln Community Foundation. That was just a surprise to me. I was assuming, just based on the title of it, that they'd be, if not a presenting sponsor, a significant supporter of the series.
Thank you. So, panelists, you can take a moment to update, modify, check your scoring, and we will take a short break. And I see it's 10:22, Rachel, 10:30.
Yep.
On the dot. That's easier. That's an easier time. Okay. We will reconvene at 10:30 a.m. and continue on with the rest of the applications. Welcome back, everyone. We will dive into the second half of the grant applications, and we'll start with Rachel giving us a synopsis on the Nebraska Trumpet Ensemble.
Great. So the Nebraska Trumpet Ensemble will present 2 in-person concerts in Lincoln, 2 live-streamed trumpet recitals, and 1 special live-streamed event, which will feature the premiere of a work for solo trumpet to bring awareness on gun violence.
Thank you. And for this particular application, Katrina is our primary reviewer, so I will turn it over to you, Katrina.
Thank you. The Nebraska Trumpet Ensemble proposal was the project description was very detailed, which was helpful in understanding the sequence of events. Additionally, I appreciate that the ensemble overview and the clear outline of what events would take place as a result of receiving the grant funding was really clear. Incorporating educational outreach to elementary students is a great way to generate interest and engagement in music and performing arts, especially with some arts programs not being as available as they previously were. Live streaming recitals and incorporating them into your regular programming demonstrates a strong ability to be nimble and to adjust to meet the needs of performers and audience members. With planning and evaluation, the project goals provided are well aligned with your mission, and events are well attended. I am curious about the number of responses you receive from post-event questionnaires and evaluation forms, and if there is an opportunity to request feedback directly from student and parent participants to learn what is or is not working from their perspectives as well. The outreach and engagement sections, the letters of support from previous participants was great. Would love to also see some feedback from attendees, and especially folks from different areas, just to see how it's impacted them, but that's not necessarily required. Performing new and familiar selections is important to keep things interesting, and I like that you engage with the work of local composers. The organization prioritizes patrons with different abilities by ensuring accessible venues, parking, and other accommodations to meet their needs. Additionally, offering recitals via live stream can be an effective way to meet people where they are. Your publicity efforts via social media and other outlets are great. I am curious how many tickets are sold via the Today's Deals and if they are reaching low to moderate income individuals and other demographics. This information would be really great to include in your request in the future. Finally, again, your letters of support were great to read and learn more about the impact of your work from other perspectives.
Thank you, Katrina, for those comments. And Drew, you are our secondary reviewer. Double check in there.
Yeah, I liked the educational outreach portions of it, and would love even more of that within the application itself. I think there could be more detail in the planning process. There's always different styles of the planning of like plugging in what the 2 weeks before and stuff like that. I feel like this series, it may have worked better to see what that detail and like timeline would look like with more dates involved and details. In the budget, I was curious more about the foundation support. It was just kind of generally in there. Again, I wasn't sure if this is anticipated or if there was a breakdown of what foundations and what amounts were in there. I think the biggest thing for me was there was mention of low ticket prices, but there's no reflection of ticket income at all within the budget. So was confused on that in itself. But yeah, that's all.
Very good. And any additional comments, Matthew?
I was a little surprised that, just in terms of the artistic quality, they talk about how many programs have been live streamed. And I've actually watched some of them, so I know they've been live streamed. But, there's no samples of those. And so as part of reviewing this application, I wasn't able to actually experience the group and the artists. All I had was the program. And so I didn't really feel like I was able to have a full understanding, especially of the proposed artists for the upcoming season. And I noted that, the recording's part of their budget. And so, providing those as work samples, what would have been a great thing to include. Looking at the budget, I definitely echoed Drew's comments about foundation support just being all lumped in together. Helpful to know if that's perspective or if it's not, if it's secured, to have that broken down. I was a little surprised to see $20 as an advertising line item. Again, just curious of what that line item $20 expense was. And so it just felt like there was a disconnect between some things broken down, to a very, very small level, and then some things that are broken down into kind of big budget categories, lumped together. I do echo the comments on the outreach and engagement. I think that's one of the strongest areas of the application.
Very good. So panelists, take a moment to update your scores and give me the sign once you are ready to move on. Katrina, Matthew, and Drew, thank you all. And Rachel, please give us a synopsis on our next application, which is Renaissance Inc.
This application is to help cover the cost of the artists, which include directors, a conductor, singers, and orchestra, who will be performing in a mall and the Night Visitors at Trinity Episcopal Cathedral on January 6th and 7th. Some of the artists will be traveling into Omaha, and they will need lodging and travel expenses. They estimate 400 people will attend each of the performances for a total of 800.
Thank you. And Drew, will you please start us off with the primary review?
Yeah, I thought this was an excellent use of collaboration between local organizations, local and outside artists, plus focus on an art form that doesn't necessarily get a lot of attention outside of just the big hitter kind of in the area. There is a variety of engaged audiences because of the collaborative efforts. So I think that's very strong as well. And the artists involved have high and varied qualifications, making it for a really, it appears to be a really well-rounded artistic experience. For planning and evaluation, great goals for making performance accessible with a donate at will admission. I thought that got some good points from me. While I think the goals for participation is important and stated well, there's more opportunity to state the goals that the project would be bringing to the audience and to the community. I thought there was a lot of focus on those participating within the project, and I'd like to see equal or at least more of what was presented for the audience and community perspective. The audience evaluation seems pretty good for audience members that register through the Eventbrite, but I'm wondering if there could be more evaluation and survey efforts being made to those who are present at the project. The planning process was a great breakdown and timeline. Even more opportunity was shown within the timeline of collaboration that they're doing with other places and their location of like rehearsals and use of students and students observing things. And I thought the budget was very clear and detailed. For outreach and engagement, again, in addition to great impact on the many community groups that are involved with the project, I would like to know what the impact for the audience and the greater community would be a little more. I'm missing clear demographic information or clear underserved audiences, but the outreach and service the project is reaching with the participants is greatly stated. There's lots of education and outreach throughout the collaborative elements of the project, as well as accessibility with no financial barriers. Again, good points there. And good, I really like the letters of support focused on the project specifically as well. Overall, it was a impressive narrative for me.
Great. Thank you, Drew. And Matthew, you are up on the secondary review.
Yes, I agree with Drew. I thought it was a strong application overall. I thought the timeline was very helpful. I think really the biggest comment that I had to add in addition to what Drew said was that the applicant mentions that having the concert free removes any financial barrier. But what we're really looking for is we're looking for underserved community outreach and an outline of the plan to do that outreach. So making the concert free is, that's something that removes a barrier of attendance, but it's not the plan of engagement. And it seems to me like this applicant's very close. Like I look at the rehearsal sites, I look at the letters of support. I'm on the verge of like really believing that's happening, but I need to see it outlined just a little more clearly and just articulated with like, this is the plan to do that, so that I know that those efforts are fully happening. But yes, overall I thought that this sounded like a great project. And I like the connection between, you have music educators, you have professional musicians. In Nebraska, you're bringing in, someone that has performed internationally. I thought bringing all those connections together made for a really interesting proposal.
Very good. Katrina, any additional comments? Okay. Take a moment, review your scores, and give me the sign. Katrina, Drew, and Matthew. Thank you all. Our next grant application is River City Mixed Chorus. And Rachel, please give us the synopsis.
So this application is to help cover performance expenses for the River City Mixed Chorus's summer 2023 concert at the Holland Performing Arts Center in June. They estimate 1,200 people will attend the performance.
And our primary reviewer for River City Mixed Chorus is Katrina.
Thank you. So this proposal was fun to read. To start off with, I'll just go over my notes and my initial notes and then some follow-up things that I had. The project description was clear and demonstrated the applicant's commitment to quality arts programming. I appreciated the details about the ASL, American Sign Language services being included in the project description, so that it wasn't an afterthought, as well as the number of performers, the selection process for the chorus members, and the process of hiring local instrumentalists. With the planning and evaluation component, the goals were very focused on the organizational goals or the choir goals, and not so much goals for impact in the community. So I think that, again, using SMART goals would be helpful just to be really clear about what the goals are, and then maybe varying some of the goals. So a couple of organizational goals as well as community impact goals. I think the applicant did a good job with stating how they would leverage social media to increase awareness, measured by social media clicks and percentage clicks increase, and percentage of increase in ticket sales. Would recommend that they do that for any goals that are listed. With the outreach and engagement, I thought I had some mixed feelings about some of the outreach and engagement. And so I'm going to hold additional comment for that for just a moment and pass it to the secondary reviewer.
Okay, and that is Matthew. Thank you.
On this application, this isn't as much of a comparison to others as just, when I see that, recording or like capturing the performance as part of the budget, like, a work sample like this is really helpful because, I can watch a full concert if I want to. I can see different clips. I can see the interaction of the artist that's happening. And so, I've never attended a River City mixed chorus concert, but I can really understand, like, oh, okay, like this is where you're performing, and I can get a sense of the audience, just, my own qualitative perspective on that. I can see the choir, I can see the soloist. So that was a really helpful component. I do agree that the goals appear to be very internalized. It's sort of a I attended a workshop recently. They talk about, the pipeline of people who are involved, building towards the profile, not like the profile, saying, okay, this is what we want people to recognize us as, and then, working down from that. It sort of felt like that to me, that, they have a profile in mind. And so the goals sort of fall under that versus being driven by the membership or by the communities that they're engaging with. Just when I read the application, not to say that is truly the organization's goals, just from this particular narrative, that's what I walked away with. I think those were the only additional comments that I had.
Thank you. Drew, anything else? Any other comments to add?
I just want to give positive shout out for the timeline and the budget and all the breakdown of stuff in that. Just really appreciate all those details.
Good. Okay, we'll take a moment to check scoring. You can let me know when you're ready to move on. Matthew, Katrina, and Drew. Thank you, everyone. So our next application is Sing Omaha, and Rachel, please bring us in with the synopsis.
Sing Omaha's spring concert will be held at St. Paul's United Methodist Church in Papillion in April of 2023. This concert features Sing Omaha's girls choir, boys choir, women's choir, and the master chorale, as well as a professional string ensemble.
Thank you. And our primary reviewer is Drew.
Yeah, I thought the project is well-diverse opportunity for many choirs of Sing Omaha in collaboration with the string quartet. Also just excited to hear that they have a chance to gather again for this project as it was canceled during the pandemic. Qualifications for artists and collaborators read really well. For planning and evaluation, good goals for the participants and choirs, but not clear on measurability. Like, how do you know you have a positive impact on the Omaha arts community? So kind of missing that side of it. Not clear on who the audience or who is being attracted for the project. Could use more goals and evaluation on the audience side of things. I thought it was a nice and detailed planning process and procedure as well. For the budget, I wasn't clear on artistic director and executive director fees, if that is specifically tied to this project that the grant is tied to, or if that's tied more to just Sing Omaha general expenses over the course of the time or not. So that didn't seem super clear to me, as everything is very this project focused, but those numbers read more general and longer term outside of that project. So question marks arose in my head. Otherwise, I thought there was really good breakdown within the budget. For outreach and engagement, I thought there's a nice range of community partners and geographic areas connected through Sing Omaha. Could use more audience insight on this specific concert, for some additional information. The organization has good outreach, accessibility to be involved, but could use more info on how the project again is serving the audience in the community, and if that audience is underserved for this particular project. And that's all I got.
Thank you. Katrina, you do the follow-up with the secondary review.
Thank you. I thought that this proposal was well written and provided great background information related to the organization and its merits. The work samples are beautiful. The planning and evaluation section, it was informative, but again, SMART goals. And it's okay to say if there are more qualitative goals, we want students to feel empowered, and we're going to measure that by collecting participant testimonials. That's fine, but just being really clear about those. Where I struggled the most with this proposal, because it was a strong proposal, was with the outreach and engagement section. In the application, it states that they make explicit room for musicians from historically underrepresented musicians on the basis of color, race, ethnicity, et cetera. And backgrounds and socioeconomic circumstances in Douglas and Sarpy County and surrounding communities. However, in the list of collaborators and partners, the most diverse public school system in Douglas and Sarpy County is OPS, and that's not listed as a partner agency. So I'm not sure if that was an oversight or if they're just not a partner, but it seems difficult to engage and welcome diversity into the choral programs if you're not present and meeting people where they are. And that is all I have.
Thank you. Anything else, Matthew?
Yeah, I think the biggest disconnect for me, and I think Drew started to outline this, is the difference between, like, this is a particular project. This is a specific project, and so it's an opportunity to both apply for funding, through this grant process that just funds that project, and to do outreach and marketing and publicity. And I felt like the outreach component, kind of similar as Katrina mentioned, like, what are the unique opportunities with this concert? Is there something unique about the repertoire or the guest soloists or schools that you're bringing in? Like, this concert only, we're partnering with, whichever organization is, or we're bringing in this composer, or, just like, each time you're doing one of these projects, it's sort of a specific opportunity versus, so some pieces of the narrative just kind of made it seem as though it's part of the whole overall organization budget. And that's not what my understanding of this particular grant program is. And so just a clear delineation between that would have been helpful. I do agree that the timeline super helpful, among the most detailed that I've reviewed.
Excellent. Thank you. So we'll take a moment for scoring. And then give me the thumbs up when you're ready to move on. Katrina. Drew, thank you. And Matthew. All right. Our next application is from the University of Nebraska, Omaha. And Rachel, please lead us off with a synopsis.
This application is to help support the artists who will offer the multimedia live performance of Barlam and Jehoshaphat, Buddha, a Christian Saint, at St. Cecilia's Cathedral in February. Based on similar events that they've had in the past, they estimate 600 to 800 people from Omaha, Lincoln, and nearby areas will attend the event.
Okay, thank you. And our primary reviewer is Drew. Drew, start us off, please.
Yeah, I thought it was a very interesting project, blending a lot of like history and music and art together, and being offered to a range of students and open to the public as well. It feels important because of the worldly nature and like the blending of cultures and languages. Plus there's not a lot of opportunity for early music engagement, I think. So I think that's also a good thing to bring into the mix. The ensemble appears very knowledgeable and leaders in this work and time period of music. They've traveled around the world with this work that they have created. I feel very confident that they're qualified to lead this project. For planning and evaluation, good layout and plan of goals and evaluation. There's lots of mentioning of high school student involvement, but it's not specific if it's like certain high schools or if they are like dedicated audience or if they're just specifically like invited. I feel like there was a lot more clarity with college student involvement versus high school, but high school is also mentioned quite a lot throughout it. Good detailed planning process and the roles provided. One kind of question I had, the budget is very heavy on travel arrangements for the artists, understandably. And with that heavy line on there, I just didn't know, this might be a staff question, travel and things like that, that's still qualified large part of budget and asking for these grant funds, correct?
Yeah, they can definitely include travel in their budget.
Okay, just wanted to check since it was a large component. I am assuming through the budget that most administrative costs are taken care of by the organizations that are involved in the planning process. But I think that could, if that is the case, that could have been mentioned along with the note about the performance space being provided by one of the partners. If some of that is just being provided by that, it's always good to have that included in a narrative form, even if it's within the budget for clarity. It is mentioned in the community partnership narrative and the letter of support that Cathedral Arts Project will provide a portion of the funding required for this event, but that is not reflected anywhere within the budget. So with that being mentioned multiple times, but then not in the actual budget itself, curious about that discrepancy. For outreach and engagement, I really appreciate the use of previous feedback. This is a good example. I feel like they have really shown the previous feedback that they've gotten, the observations that they've made from similar offerings, and how they are using that to continue to connect to their audience. I thought that was really nice. I appreciate there's no barriers to attend the concert as it is open to the public and also in a public space. Even with the pre-event lecture, while it is on campus, with the narrative that they put with it, it does aid more into being more of a public inclusive event and not restricted to just students. And then lastly, I enjoyed the review and impact from the Facebook post to show support, but I wonder if a letter of support, particularly for this project specifically, maybe from a previous audience member or community partner, would have been more effective for their letter. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Drew. And Katrina, we'll hear from you as secondary reviewer.
Thank you. So as has been the case all day, Drew is very thorough and has provided a lot of context. So I'll just add some additional points that I felt were important. There is a kind of emphasis on high school and high school students as well as college students. And I think that in the underserved community outreach section, one area that I would just point out is like the statement that promotion of this event in the schools will not be difficult or innovative. And I think that there's just a really important distinction, like promotion does not equate to engagement. So to really be clear about the strategies used to actually engage people and to get them to become participants in the event and activities. The project evaluation section was very clear. I could tell that there was a lot of excitement from the applicant organization about this project, and that was felt throughout every aspect of the application. It's just, you know, really being intentional and mindful of how we're talking about reaching and engaging with underserved communities, I think is important.
Good comments. Thank you. Matthew, anything to add on this particular application?
The only, the biggest comment that I had is for me, there's a big disconnect between the timeline and the budget. If approved, or if approved at the amount requested, the NAC funding of this would be 50% of the program budget. So that's a large percentage of the program budget at 50%. And the concert's not that far away, so the concert, is coming up. And so it leaves me wondering, like, so is this project moving forward? Like, is it viable for this project to move forward without NAC funding? And that led me to the second budget question, which was about the Cathedral Arts project. And they mentioned that if it is funded, that they would provide a portion of funding. So it just sort of left me wondering, like, is NAC funding essential to this, or could the whole project move ahead without it? And so I started kind of looking into each of those areas, and I couldn't really get a clear sense of how the funding sources broke down. And so that for me, as I was scoring it, that section has a big disconnect versus the other sections that I thought were quite strong. The budget and the timeline and how those work together was definitely a weaker component.
Thank you. Okay, everyone take a moment and update your scores if need be, and give me a thumbs up when you're ready to move on. Thank you, Katrina. Thanks, Drew. Thank you, Matthew. Very good. And our 12th and final application is from the Wakefield Progressive Inc. And please lead us off with the synopsis, Rachel.
This grant is to help pay for the musical artists set to perform at the Wakefield Party in June of 2023 in Graves Park in Wakefield. The Wakefield Party is a mini country music festival. They estimate that the event will draw over 500 people from the tri-state region, which includes Nebraska, South Dakota, and Iowa.
Thank you. And our primary reviewer is Matthew. Matthew, can you unmute, please?
Thank you. Appreciate that. I was excited to read this application. I wasn't familiar with this particular festival, and I like the combination of in a regional area bringing a music event, but having that to create opportunities for vendors and things as well. While it would be a revenue source, I noted the inclusivity of making the vendor fees free. Just because it does make an event like this available to smaller or kind of startup local vendors that might not have funding available to participate in larger festivals or markets and things. When I looked into the valuation and side of things, I felt like this particular applicant kind of dodged the ability of being able to track things. As we can't track these specific things as related to ticket sales. And I just encourage them that there's a wide variety of ways you can track things. You can track things at the event. You can do post-show surveys. You can check. Just a challenge to maybe dig into that a little more. I did note that increased tourism was a goal, and that there's some diversified support coming through the county tourism office, and that was great to see. And that they also had a goal of donating some funding back if the event was successful. Partnering with the Little Red Hen Theater seemed like a great way to produce the event, so that they have someone who's used to producing these live music events and not trying to kind of go that on their own without a theatrical or music partner. And the marketing outline appeared to be well outlined, and the samples they provided were great. One final comment I had about the artists that I especially liked was the idea of having one of the opening artists from the previous year's festival as a headliner at the following year festival. I think it both creates the opportunity for artists to have a longer term relationship with their community, and to come back to Nebraska and know that Nebraska can be a place where they can kind of grow their awareness and career. And they were obviously able to do that with having one of their opening artists come back, make a music video that became a national video for them, and now is a headliner this year. So that was definitely an impressive thing to see. I felt like their letters were very supportive and came from a few different perspectives. I did note in the accessibility narrative, they mentioned that the project doesn't require visual cues for audience participation, but it just made me think about people who may need interpretation services, or people who may have an auditory impairment, being able to participate fully in the festival. It seemed like the comments were a little dismissive without knowing who all the audience members would be. I also made a note that for a festival that's in a geographically rural area, that it appeared they had diversified sponsors, and that they've been able to attract a fairly large amount of sponsorship revenue to ensure the viability of the festival.
All right, very good. And Katrina, you will lead us in the secondary review remarks.
Yeah, thank you. Matthew also very thorough in his assessment of the proposal, and so I'll just add a couple of things. The accessibility to individuals with limited mobility, addressing that and making sure that folks are able to get to the venue, as well as to participate fully, including local businesses and organizations in the event. That was also important, as well as their reliance on local volunteers assisting with the planning and day of events, making it really a community invested project. One of the interesting things that I thought was shared was the diversity of the population, and having music be the universal language, but then not addressing any language barriers for community members that want to participate or want to volunteer or want to engage or what have you. And so just wanting to make sure that folks address those things in their proposals. And But I do see that they want to recruit Hispanic and Latinx community members to be part of the planning and organization, but really digging into and delving into what that strategy is, especially with 48% of the residents being of Hispanic or Latinx heritage. The other component that I wanted to touch on briefly was with the project goals. I appreciated how those were laid out. But again, the evaluation piece could use just a little bit more, just try to be a little bit more creative in ways to collect data, to be able to know if you're going in the right direction or if you need to course correct. The promotion section I thought was actually really helpful. I appreciated the vulnerability with saying, hey, we have room to grow and to do things in a different way. And that is all that I have for my notes.
Thank you, Katrina. And Drew, do you have any final comments or remarks?
Yeah, I just want to uplift again the dedication of their inclusion in the Hispanic community. I like how they are actively already, in this festival, including those voices to be part of the planning and evaluation process. I think that's just vital and a good thing to uplift and is a good example. My only question, and I think again, this might be staff question, is with the fundraising element of that, is there anything with NAC funding to projects that also fundraise? Is there any issues with that?
As long as their budget balances, that's what we look for. Normally when someone contacts us and asks about fundraisers, the problem is that their budget can't balance because the goal is to raise all this money, right? So I am assuming from the application that they're fundraising to pay for the event. So as long as their budget balances, it's fine.
Okay, great. Yeah, because it did seem pretty clear in the narrative that it's more like left over in a sense, like is where the fundraising efforts are going through. It's not like the goal or what the advertisement of the festival is. So I just wanted to be clear on that from NAC funding standpoint. Thank you.
Good point. Well, with that, we have reviewed all of the applications, thoroughly discussed, and you can finalize your scoring. We will take a 5-minute break at this point, and during this time, the Nebraska Arts Council staff will be tallying the scores and preparing information for the final discussion. So when the panelists reconvene, we will review the procedures and make final determinations. The final portion of the meeting is closed to the public. So this will end our live stream at this point. So to all of you who have been watching today, thank you for joining us.